morning and welcome to Creative Writing 101.
It's a brand new year, and maybe one of your New Year's resolutions is to write more in 2016. We thought we would put together some creative writing exercises to inspire anybody who may need it.
Creative writing is a great way to develop your writing skills, obviously. And the point of starting out creative writing is not perfection. It's just to get something out on paper, just practice coming up with ideas and putting them into words.
Yeah, creative writing first and foremost should be fun and cathartic. You shouldn't be stressing out about whether or not it's right. Right, like that. You see that little pun I did there? I think the more you practice creative writing, it really gets you thinking outside the box, right? And I think you can discover things about yourself or your loved ones or the world around you. So
yeah. Just like reading, writing can make you a better person.
Yeah.
So let's get started, and don't let a lack of ideas of where to begin stop you. That sounds really intimidating, okay, I have the time to write, what am I going to write about? There are so many places to get ideas from. People post on Pinterest, and I'm sure on blogs and everything, different writing prompts, just like a picture that might inspire you to write about the people in it or what might be going on. You can even just look at your bookshelf.
Yeah, the books you've read before can be a great starting off point because you already know the story and the characters are right there. So you can kind of play around with it and make it your own.
So we're going to do that today. So if you want to join along with us, grab a book from your bookshelf or think of one that you've read recently. We decided to pick Mr. H because it has a very open-ended ending. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of is a sandbox in itself, and it's also very whimsical, which makes it feel like anything can happen. So it kind of feels like anything we write could have happened in the book.
Right, so what we decided to do was take the really open ending and write our own endings, just carry it a step further to okay, and then what happened,
mm-hmm.
Answering that question. And yeah, so you've got this story about this hippopotamus who speaks English, and he convinces someone to let him out of his cage at the zoo, and he's just walking around town eating pizza and looking for Africa. So it's really funny. Yeah.
It's really funny because it follows certain rules, like he doesn't have money and he wants to get to Africa and he can't fit through certain spaces. But then it also breaks all kinds of rules, like
no one thinks twice about the fact that a hippopotamus is running around the city.
Right.
So we wanted to keep that whimsical, feel of the story, right? We
mm-hmm.
wanted to keep that tone, but just create our own kind of endings for the book and imagine what might have happened after he set off in search of Africa.
So, Catherine, what did you come up with?
Okay. So there's actually a final illustration in the back of the book, right after the text, that has you assume it's Mr. H, right? And then he's got a little lady hippo and a tiny little kid hippo and a hive of bumblebees above them. So I took this image and I used it as the inspiration for my ending. Because I'm thinking maybe this is what happened next,
Right, maybe that's what the illustrator was thinking.
Yeah, okay. So my ending, so Mr. H is walking and setting off for Africa and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the book ends. Okay, so in my story, he keeps walking and then he goes to a different city and he finds another zoo and he goes inside and there's a beautiful lady hippo in the African exhibit named Ethel. I named her Ethel.
I love it.
And so he's oh my gosh, she's so pretty and encaptured and I must rescue her. And so he lets her out of the gate and they set off for Africa together, and he teaches her English on the way, and so she falls in love with him for his superior intellect and mild-mannered personality. And so and they go the wrong way, so they don't end up in Africa, but they do find a nice little farmland in Nebraska.
Lovely.
Yeah. And they're you know what, this is fine, we can just live here. And so they get married in a small ceremony, and Ethel won't change her last name, even though she doesn't have one. She just refuses to. So they start up a very successful beekeeping business.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they use the money that they get from the honey and wax to buy bowler hats and floral print dresses.
Nice.
Yeah. And then eventually they have a son, and they name him Pizza after Mr. H's favorite food. And then Pizza, the hippo, not the food, eventually studies abroad in Africa and then comes back and tells his parents the Nile River is just okay.
Love it.
Yep, that's how it ends.
So I was inspired by some of the little tidbits that happen throughout the story,
Okay.
and I thought it'd be fun to kind of circle back to some of them. So I wanted him to kind of meet Rosanna again, and he mentions how much he wants to eat coconuts again. So those were some of my
Yeah,
inspirations.
you never see him actually get coconuts all of a sudden.
Right?
That was one of his main
Like-
motivations for leaving the zoo.
Yeah, as he wanted a ton of
Oh.
coconuts.
Sad.
But I
didn't give him coconuts. I was just like, bees.
a lot of this too is, so there's when he's talking to Rosanna, then Mr. H says something about how people just don't care about their neighbor anymore. They only care about themselves, so no one is going to notice if he's out of his cage. And Rosanna says, "That sounds like something my grandfather would say." So I just thought it also would be funny if Mr. H met Rosanna's grandfather.
Nice.
The next morning, Mr. H walked until he found a grocery store, hoping to finally eat coconuts again. He wandered aisle after aisle, but could only find coconut water, coconut milk, and shredded coconut. No real, straight-from-the-tree coconuts! He sighed as he walked out, realizing that he probably would have had to pay for food here, too, and the nice waitress had warned him others might not be as kind as she. On his way out of the store, he bumped into a girl that looked familiar. It was Rosanna. She was shopping with her grandfather, and she was right. Mr. H got along quite amicably with him. They talked about the evils of the 21st century while Rosanna purchased groceries. "Hey, Mr. H, I couldn't find any coconuts for you, but I thought you might want to try coconut water," Rosanna said as she came back out of the store. "Here, I got a bottle and opened it for you." Mr. H knew that it was rude to refuse a gift, so even though he was skeptical, he thanked Rosanna and took the coconut water. She looked at him expectantly. He took a sip. It was delicious. Maybe he didn't need to go back to Africa after all. Life in the city was pretty good too.
I like that he makes do with coconut water. You know, he gets something.
I thought it'd be kind of funny if, like, I mean, he's a little bit stodgy, right? Like,
Yeah.
evils of the 21st century.
He is very traditional.
Yeah.
He's a very traditional
Right.
hippo.
So I thought it'd be funny if he just, like, actually hitched on to, like, a super trendy thing right now, like coconut water.
So that's just one prompt you can try. If you have other creative writing prompts or tips on creative writing, let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, or on Twitter at CoffeeBreakEBYR. And also, if you want more book-related creative writing prompt ideas, Catherine will be on our blog tomorrow, or links.com, with many more ideas to help with your creative writing resolution.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Right. Like that. You see that little pun I did there?
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Thanks. So great. I worked so hard on it.